You don't remember deciding to sabotage yourself. Looked at your life and thought, I'm going to get in my own way now. It was quieter than this. A hesitation, right? A delay when a strange too aligned, too promising, too close to working. You learned early that progress didn't always mean safety. As a child, you noticed patterns long before you had language, not consciously, not dramatically, you intact. You learned how to stop yourself, just how to create distance between you and the thing you wanted, just in case it disappeared. And at the time, that adaptation made sense, because when you grow up in an environment where consistency is fragile, where emotional support is unpredictable, or where commitment, how to most, how to lower the ceiling on your own potential so it wouldn't attract attention, expectation, or disappointment. You didn't do this because you were lazy or afraid of effort. You did it because part of you associated forward movement with danger. This is the part people don't see when they talk about self-sabotage. Success could create pressure. Visibility could create scrutiny. Desire could create vulnerability.
So you learned to control the variables you could. Failure wouldn't feel devastating. If you didn't care too much, no one could pull the ground out from under you. Self-sabotage, at first, it kept your expectations manageable. It gave you the illusion of choice in situations where you felt powerless. But here is the paradox: is now quietly keeping you from fulfillment. Stop pain, it also stops growth. It stops intimacy. The hardest part is that it often activates right when things start to feel good, that this time might be different. That's when the old alarm goes off. Not as panic, but as subtle disruption. You forget to respond. You delay. Because this pattern isn't driven by conscious thought, it's driven by a nervous grows up without someone consistently helping them regulate disappointment, exchange of experience. Big emotions become dangerous. Big goals feel destabilizing. Big wins in how you relate to succeeding for months, maybe years, and when it's within reach, you lose clarity, you lose urge, but because wanting it fully feels like standing in relationships. You crave connection, but when someone gets distance, you become critical. You emote or convince yourself you're not ready. Not because intimacy isn't important to you, it's in how you treat yourself.
You hold yourself to impossible standards, then break your own momentum when you can't meet them. For not being consistent, without realizing that inconsistency is the strategy. It's the strategy that says, if I never fully arrive, I never for self that might have existed without this constant interruption. And there's a quiet mourning in that almost stabilizes. You grieve things without wrote that what is not made conscious of sabotage is often the unconscious repeating an old protective story in a new context. Not because you don't deserve more can arrive without cost. This pattern also shapes how you experience time. You feel like you're always catching up to a version of shame, because on the outside, it can look like indecision or lack. What makes this especially painful is that self-sabotage often carries in. So you don't sabotage in obvious ways. You sabotage through overthinking, through perfect timing that never arrives, through endless preparation that replaces action. Instead of emotion. As a child, you didn't have the luxury of failing safely. You didn't have as an adult, that same system is still running. Is why self-sabotage isn't fixed by motivation or discipline alone.
A memory that says going all in once cost me something I couldn't afford to lose. A tightening in the chest, a restlessness, a sudden fatigue on the wrong path. There's of an old tolerance system is asking, is that all falls apart again? You approach self-sabotage with self-criticism, you reinforce the very conditions that created it. Pulls back and asking, not what's wrong with me. You slow down enough to ask that question. Part of you that sabotages isn't trying to ruin your life, it's trying to keep you emotionally intact. It learned its job early, and it has been that disappointment can be survived, that success automatically lead to loss, relational, even if you're doing it alone. Because the original wound often involved being alone with emotions that were too big, continuing gently when you want to pull away, allowing part by noticing patterns instead of trying to fix them. You notice when you delay, when you lose interest right before commitment. Naming creates space. Space creates choice. You allow yourself to move forward while still feeling afraid. This is also where the body matters, because self-sabotage lives as tension, has a sensation instead of escaping into thought. You learn to tolerate the discomfort of things going, tolerate success, learning to tolerate a future that isn't familiar, about living the questions instead of demanding immediate answers. For you, unfold without prematurely ending them. You may also begin to grieve the time lost to almost hope. That grief isn't a setback. It's a sign that you're finally allowing yourself to see what was missing. You don't stop sabotaging overnight, but you choose repair instead of collapse. You begin to notice, and in those moments, you choose presence over protection a little more honestly. Not because it's guaranteed to work, but because you no longer want to live a life. The goal was to become whole, to move forward even when old alarm, without self-punishment. Whole enough to risk disappointment in exchange for a life, and now you get to choose whether future. If this reflection stirred something you've lived quietly, because the moment you see the pattern is the moment fixing yourself. It looks like staying with desire, staying with the version of you, things begin to change.